Folks, let me tell you, some cars just have. The 1973 Opel GT? Oh yeah, it's definitely one of those. This little German sports car, with its swoopy lines and undeniable charm, was a fascinating blend of European engineering and American styling cues. It wasn't trying to be a muscle car, not really, but it sure borrowed some of that visual punch, that exciting look that said, hey, I'm here for a good time. The Opel GT managed to plant a foot in both worlds. It had that distinct European feel, compact, responsive, and not overly complicated. Yet, look at its silhouette, those Coke bottle curves, and you can't help but see a little bit of the Corvette Stingray in there. That's why so many people, myself included, affectionately nicknamed it the Baby Vette. The beauty of the Opel GT, especially that final 1973 model year, was its accessibility. It wasn't some unobtainable supercar reserved for the ultra-rich. It was a sports car for the everyday enthusiast, someone who appreciated good looks and an engaging driving experience, but also had to keep an eye on the budget. Opel, a German subsidiary of General Motors at the time, understood this. They aimed to create something that felt special, looked incredible, and wouldn't require a second mortgage. And boy, did they succeed in capturing a certain magic with this car, a magic that still resonates with collectors and car lovers today. Now, Opel wasn't exactly known for fire-breathing sports cars before the GT came along. Think Opel, and you'd probably picture sensible, reliable family sedans like the Kadett or the Record. But the folks at Opel, particularly their talented design team, had a secret itch. They wanted to build something that would really shake things up, something that would put Opel on the map for more than just practicality. This dream started to take shape in the mid-1960s. The story goes that a group of designers, working somewhat under the radar, began sketching out ideas for a sporty two-seater. The first public glimpse of this ambition came in 1965 at the Frankfurt and Paris motor shows. Opel unveiled the experimental GT, a stunning concept car that looked like it had driven straight out of a science fiction movie. People were blown away. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, so much so that Opel decided to take the plunge and turn the dream into a production reality. Let's talk about the look of this car, because wow, it's a stunner. The Opel GT's design was its strongest selling point, no question about it. Chief designer Erhard Schnell and his team really knocked it out of the park. They managed to create a shape that was both elegant and aggressive, compact, yet incredibly impactful. Those flowing lines, the pronounced fender flares, and that distinctive Coke bottle styling where the bodywork tucks in at the doors and flares out again over the rear wheels, were heavily influenced by American design trends of the era, particularly the C3 Corvette. It had a presence that far exceeded its modest dimensions. The proportions were just right. A long, sloping hood suggested power, even if the engines underneath were more modest than its American cousins. The short rear deck and fastback roofline gave it a classic sports car silhouette. The body was actually built by French coach builders Brissonneau and Lotz, which added another layer of European craftsmanship to its pedigree. But the real party trick, the feature everyone remembers, has to be those headlights. Instead of conventional pop-ups that flip up from the hood, the Opel GT had these incredibly cool rotating headlights. They were manually operated by a big lever on the center console, right next to the shifter. It added a real touch of James Bond-esque gadgetry to the car. Alright, so the Opel GT looked like $1 million, but what was it like under that long, stylish hood? Well, it wasn't packing a fire-breathing V8, despite its Corvette-esque styling. Opel kept things a bit more sensible and European in the engine department. For the 1973 model year, and indeed for most of its production, buyers in the United States primarily got the 1.9-litre cam-in-head four-cylinder engine. This was a trusty Opel power plant known for its reliability and decent pep. It wasn't going to win many drag races against American muscle, but that wasn't really the point of the GT. It was about balanced performance and a fun driving experience. In its earlier pre-smog era tune, this 1.9-litre engine could produce a respectable 102 horsepower. However, by 1973, things were changing. The looming emissions regulations in the United States, a key market for the GT, meant that automakers had to make adjustments. For the 73 Opel GT, this often meant a slight reduction in power as engineers worked to meet these new, stricter standards. Despite the modest horsepower figures by today's standards, the Opel GT was still a lively performer for its era, especially considering its relatively light weight of just over 2,000 pounds. The power-to-weight ratio was decent enough to provide spirited acceleration, and the car felt nimble and responsive. The standard transmission was a 4-speed manual, which really let you make the most of the engine's power band. So while the 1973 model might have seen a slight dip in outright power due to regulations, it still offered a thoroughly enjoyable and engaging driving experience, true to the GT's character. Step inside the 1973 Opel GT and you're immediately struck by how focused it is on the driver. There's no unnecessary fluff, no distracting gadgets, just the essentials for an engaging driving experience. The dashboard is dominated by a set of clear, legible gauges, typically including a speedometer, tachometer, fuel level, oil pressure, and water temperature. Everything is right there, easy to see, easy to understand. It's a very purposeful layout, designed to keep your attention on the road and the task of driving. The seating position is low-slung, making you feel connected to the car and the pavement beneath. The interior materials were typical of the era, a lot of vinyl and plastic, but it was all put together pretty well. The bucket seats offered decent support for spirited driving, though perhaps not ideal for a cross-country marathon. The 3-spoke steering wheel felt good in your hands, providing direct feedback from the front wheels. One of the things I appreciate about cars like the Opel GT is their simplicity. There are no complex infotainment systems to navigate, no myriad of buttons for features you'll never use. You get in, you turn the key, you engage with the machine. The controls are intuitive. The overall feeling when you're behind the wheel of an Opel GT is one of connection. The year 1973 marked the end of the road for the first-generation Opel GT. It was a relatively short production run, spanning from 1968 to 1973. But in that time, Opel managed to build a respectable number of these stylish coupes. In total, just over 103,000 Opel GTs rolled off the assembly line. That's a pretty good figure for a niche sports car, especially one with such a distinctive design. However, by 1973, several factors were conspiring against the continued production of the GT. Tightening safety and emissions regulations, particularly in the crucial US market, were becoming increasingly challenging and expensive for manufacturers to meet. Adapting the existing GT platform to comply with these new rules would have required significant investment. Opel and its parent company General Motors had to weigh the costs against the potential returns. And for a relatively low-volume model like the GT, the numbers probably didn't add up for a major redesign. So in August of 1973, the last Opel GT was produced. Even though production of the Opel GT stopped way back in 1973, this car is far from forgotten. It has one of the most dedicated and passionate cult followings you'll find for any classic car. These aren't just casual owners, these are true enthusiasts who love everything about the GT, its quirky charm, its head-turning looks, and its engaging driving experience. It's the kind of car that gets under your skin, the kind that people form a real emotional connection with. Why the enduring appeal? Well, for starters, it's still an incredibly distinctive-looking car. There's nothing else quite like it on the road, especially with those rotating headlights. In a sea of modern, often very similar-looking cars, the Opel GT stands out like a jewel. Plus, it's a relatively accessible classic. While prices have been climbing, you can still find decent examples that won't require you to sell your house, unlike some other European sports cars of the period. This makes it a great entry point into classic car ownership for many. Owning a classic car like a 1973 Opel GT is one thing, but keeping it on the road in great condition? That's where the real passion comes in. Thankfully, for Opel GT enthusiasts, there's a pretty robust support system out there when it comes to restoration and maintenance. While some parts can be a bit tricky to find, given the car's age and relatively limited production numbers compared to, say, a Mustang or a Beetle, there are specialists and dedicated suppliers who cater specifically to the Opel GT community. Many owners choose to do a lot of the restoration work themselves. The Opel GT, with its relatively straightforward mechanicals based on Opel's sedan lineup, is a good candidate for the home mechanic. The 1.9-litre engine is pretty robust and well understood, and the body-on-chassis construction, well, more of a unibody with substantial subframes, makes certain types of repairs manageable. There's a huge sense of satisfaction in bringing one of these beauties back to its former glory, bolt by bolt. And when you hit a snag, that passionate owner community is always there to offer advice and encouragement, which is just fantastic. Of course, not everyone has the time, skills, or workshop space for a full restoration. That's where professional restoration shops come in. So, when we look back at the 1973 Opel GT, what's its ultimate place in automotive history? Well, it wasn't the fastest car of its era, nor was it the most technologically advanced, but boy, did it have style and did it have heart. It was a car that dared to be different, a European take on the American sports car dream, and it pulled it off with incredible flair. It proved that General Motors, through its German subsidiary, could produce something truly captivating and globally appealing, something beyond the usual family haulers. The Opel GT's impact goes beyond its production numbers or its modest performance figures. It captured a certain spirit of the late 1960s and early 1970s, a time of bold design, youthful optimism, and a desire for cars that were fun and expressive. It offered a taste of the exotic to a wider audience, making sports car ownership a more attainable dream for many. Those incredible lines penned by Erhard Schnell's team still look stunning today, and those manually operated rotating headlights, pure automotive theatre, an unforgettable signature that sets it apart from almost anything else on the road. Its legacy is also cemented by the passionate community that continues to cherish and preserve these cars. The fact that so many Opel GTs are still lovingly maintained, restored and driven regularly, half a century after the last one rolled off the line, speaks volumes about its enduring appeal. It's a car that inspires loyalty and affection, a machine that's more than just transportation. It's a source of joy and a connection to a cooler, groovier time in motoring. The 1973 Opel GT, the final model year, represents the last chapter of a fascinating story. It's a reminder that great car design isn't just about horsepower or lap times. It's about creating something that stirs the soul, something that makes you smile every time you see it, or better yet, every time you get behind the wheel.